A bloody battle would take place in Moscow, killing over 3.5 million residing in it Aryan civilians, who have become colonizers in the city. The Battle of Moscow suffered 1 million military casualties from both sides after fighting for 3 months straight. The battles would continue. The Nazis would use all their might to contain the Russian threat. Within the first year, over 5 million casualties were estimated, and the Russians barely retook only Moscow from the major cities. In the second year, another major city of Hitlerstadt, Bucharingrad, would be occupied, suffering another 1.2 million military casualties. As the war moves on, back in Germany, Himmler's health starts deteriorating. His position in the public would look worse and worse after the many losses in the Russian war. Support even within his own party would slowly vanish. By the days, Himmler's condition keeps on worsening, eventually leading him to simply lying on his bed. Then, right before his death, Hans approached him saying, "We both know how this would end regardless, and there is only one person who can fix this entire situation that we have gotten ourselves in. Name me your successor and the Aryan race will be great again. We both know that it is the right thing to do this. Everyone else is just sick in their mind with hatred towards you, and only I can calm them down and keep Hitler's dream going. Put trust in me." Hans gives Himmler a very clean napkin and a black pen, and Himmler writes, "I, Heinrich Himmler, proclaim Hans Wagner my successor." Moments later, on April 1st of 1984, Himmler passes away. This whole conversation was also being recorded and would be televised moments later on every possible cable network out there. Hans would stand up and make his first official statement on television announcing the current state of the nation. He would make an immediate appearance in the Volkshalle. There he went with all of his most loyal military officers, surrounding the entire building with them. He stood up on the main podium and started talking to the microphone saying, "I, Hans Wagner, your new Führer, officially denounce the Nazi Party and the Nazi ideology as radical, and I shall reform this country into a new form, a new future. It is time for a revolution. This what has been happening has been simply insanity. Hitler was wrong. He brought temporary glory to our nation, but made us the enemy of the world. The German people are not the enemy. It is the Nazi ideology that has plagued our minds through measures of propaganda. The Slavs are not a part of some sort of a lesser race of some sort, nor are the Italians, nor are the French. We are first and foremost people of Europe. This socialist insanity must end. We need an innovative future of freedom. The freedom we see across the Atlantic." During this speech, many Nazi leaders standing next to him try to grab him but gets pulled away by the many military officers next to him. Some just straight up leave, some even get shot on the spot. As the speech continues, Hitler and Himmler were wrong. We must return to freedom. Finally, I proclaim the abandonment of the Nazi ideology and the end of the Greater Nazi Reich. The highly anticipated end of Nazism has come at last. It is not what God wanted from us to kill all these innocent people. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. After this he proceeds to pull out a wooden Latin cross that is a bit bigger than his hand and screams out, "Heil Christus, Heil Wagner." This speech would start a stir and a revolution. Millions of people all around the world start cheering. Slavs, Italians, Americans, Jews, all cheer. Many militarily trained Polish people start packing up and rallying in many cities, preparing for a departure to save their lands in case of a sudden incursion that would most definitely happen. Right after this speech, many Aryans were furious all around the Nazi Reich. A demonstration was held immediately after this speech by Martin Bormann and Otto Reinhold, the new leader of the SS. Later, this turned into an insurrection. 5 hours after the speech, Gustav Krieg, Field Marshal of the Three German Army and a close ally of Bormann, launched a full insurrection of SS officers and members of the Wehrmacht in the Rhineland. Wagner's loyalists entrenched themselves in as many major cities as possible. What seemed to be a peaceful revolution has turned into a full-blown civil war. The Nazi Reich has been left divided between Himmler's loyalists and Wagner liberals. Slave uprisings started to resurface again, such as Belarusian Minsk uprising and the Second Warsaw and Krakow uprising. To the Polish uprisings, the Polish foreign militias that were organizing themselves decided to take action and through Hungary and Slovakia, joined the Polish rebellion while also occupying the city of Lwow. These rebellions would grow. The Russians would keep on pushing, reaching Belarusian and Ukrainian lands. In the Polish rebellion led by Kazimierz Sobieski, member of the Polish government in exile, after secretly funding the previous and current Polish insurrections, has returned to his homeland. Antoni Zalesinski, Polish government's foreign minister, approached Hans Wagner in search of an alliance. Not deciding on any specific borders but a cooperation pact in defeating the Nazis. In Britain, an insurrection took place in the streets of London calling to bring back the king and his government back to Europe. In Paris, any still remaining Du Bois or Napoleon or Roman loyalist also came to the streets, and Orléans. More and more people would continue to oppose the Nazis, more and more instability. The Italians and Americans started to funnel in rockets, weapons, and ammunition into mainly the Polish rebellion in search of establishing good relations with at least one power in the East. Also, the Roman aid came from Julius's relation with his wife. This was also the main national uprising from all of the other ones. Some minor Ukrainian, Dutch, and Scottish insurrections would also take place but would be put down without much trouble. Moreover, back in Germania, as events transpire, Wagner's armies advance into the Rhine. Many of the Eastern Front soldiers panic, not knowing to which side to join. Many simply follow their superior officers or simply stick to fighting the Russians. Which this decision would quickly change after Wagner formally allies the Russians. The Russians would ramp up their gains, gaining significantly in Ostland, Ukraine, and the Caucasus. Into Poland, more and more Poles would rally and join the Polish armies. At this point, even regular untrained civilians were willing to fight. All the Poles that were enslaved and who have lost everything because of the Nazis joined the fight against them. The army would be split in half, with Sobieski's armies marching north and west while another high-ranking General Luke Jan Kiedziewski's armies marched east. Thanks to another Silesian insurrection that decided to side with the Poles, joined their armies and advanced even faster north. In the north they went as far as reaching Danzig, now being renamed back to Gdansk, meeting Wagner's armies towards the west and started push towards Königsberg. In the east, Kiedziewski would make gains such as capturing Wollin and Zytomierz, later focusing more towards the north and pushing into Ostland. The Nazi armies have been cut off, and Erich Eisenhower, the leader of the armies defending the Eastern Front against the Russians, formally surrendered to Wagner's submission, stopping the Nazi fighting in the east. This caused a massive land grab amongst all the local powers. Another Ukrainian uprising, creating a Ukrainian state in Kiev, but soon after being attacked and pushed by the Russian armies, whom wanted to take as much territory back. The Belarusian lands were mostly split between Poland and Russia. Amongst the Baltics, Latvia and Estonia seceded to create a Baltic Federation. Lithuania, on the other hand, before they could do anything, was seized by Poland. In the west, the final Nazi armies would be surrounded and the Nazis would inevitably surrender, ending the Nazi Civil War. Peace at last. Well, not really. Many Nazi loyalists are still swirling around German lands, and in the east the different nations are still fighting each other. Namely Poland and Russia, as Russia seeks to conquer all of Poland. What seems to be quite ridiculous, the Poles are handling themselves very well, going as far as pushing the Russians back as far as Kiev. Wagner has solidified his foothold over his new empire. For all this time, he was a liberal monarchist. He started forging a new liberal government and wanted to crown a king who would stabilize the nation. The rise of the European kingdom has begun. At this point, Wagner was choosing between 5 different candidates for the throne. The Habsburgs, Louis Ferdinand, head of the House of Hohenzollern, Louis Alphonse, member of the House of Bourbon, Louis Prince Napoleon, and Queen Elizabeth II. Rome continues to integrate, Japan continues to liberalize, and the new European kingdom now started improving relations with all powers, especially with the International Republic seeking to join it in the near future. These events showed the world what are the consequences of a victory, a single victory.